This is Smart Poker Study episode 194, Failing to Make Aggressive Positive EV Plays. In last week's episode 193, I answered 3 questions about how you can work on tilt control, how to not act too fast, and I gave you a weekly game plan for study and play. It's poker study time, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me on this lovely Monday morning for a little bit of strategy goodness right here. Thanks also for telling your friends and for spreading the word on all those social media channels. So we're going to get to the poker in just a little bit, but first I want to thank my Patreon supporters for another month of support for July, of course. In just about a day or two, I'm going to put out the reward podcast for July and the reward training video for July. If you want to support the show like these other awesome Patreon people, you just have to go to patreon.com/smartpokerstudy. There are different levels of support with different rewards attached, and once you begin that support, you'll get the current month's reward as well as access to the archive of all that patron-only content I've put out in the past. So please visit patreon.com/smartpokerstudy. Alrighty, let's get to some leak plugging here. So I have a question. How often would you say that you pass up on positive EV aggressive opportunities? Maybe you know a check raise will win the pot or that double barrel bluff will push your opponent off the hand, but you just can't pull the trigger. Well, this episode and the one next week are going to help you overcome this leak, help you plug this leak. So please visit the show notes page for everything I discussed today, along with screenshots and links at www.smartpokerstudy.com/pod194. And while you're there, please sign up for the weekly boost for exclusive poker strategy direct to your inbox. Let's roll. Gambate!
Very well. Where do I begin?
So how many times have you thought to yourself while you're in the middle of a poker hand, the first person to bet is going to take this pot down? Then, when the action's folded to you, you end up checking right along with everyone else. Well, this is a failure to make the aggressive play that you know is positive EV and is most likely going to earn you the pot. It's calling when you know that raising will earn you more profits or will earn the pot right now. It's also check folding when you know a check raise will end the hand and send the pot your way. It's also when you check behind on the river when you are sure that your top pair hand is good, but you just don't want to face a check raise. Whether it's gut instinct or carefully paying attention that tells you that aggression is going to win the hand right now, something ends up hijacking your finger. You're not clicking on the positive EV aggressive option, but instead, you're choosing that passive, quote-unquote money-saving option. You know, you're folding or you're checking or you're calling instead. I am going to help you plug this leak today. Here's the big problem with having this leak of avoiding those positive EV aggressive plays. It makes you more exploitable. If an opponent knows that you only ever check raise with 2 pair or greater, then they can c-bet every hand, and if you call, you have less than 2 pair. They can also fold to every one of your check raises unless they beat a 2 pair hand, and of course, because you're so face up when you play against raises, out of position, they'll end up c-betting you at every opportunity. And let's look at pre-flop. If you only 3-bet with queens or greater and maybe ace-king, as soon as you call, your opponent knows that you do not have those strong hands in your range. Your opponents are going to open raise every single time that you're in the blinds, knowing that as soon as you make a re-raise, you have them beat. Or as soon as you make a call, you have a weak hand. So you've basically capped your range and you're playing out of position from the blinds. Showing aggression only when you know that you're ahead in a hand, it means that you will not gain as much value as possible. If your opponents think that you bluff here occasionally, they're going to be more willing to give you the value that you want with your strongest hands. So let's dive a little bit further into this leak right here. Why would a player pass up those aggressive, pot-winning opportunities like these? I think the true culprit behind this leak is fear. Now, I know that it's not fear of your opponent because...
You know something. What is it?
I'm scared, Pancho.
Bullshit. You ain't afraid of no man.
There's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man.
Yeah, you ain't afraid of no man. But there are 3 things that if you're honest with yourself, you may be afraid of one of these or even more. The first is a fear of losing. The second, a fear of making mistakes. And the third is a fear of looking like a fool. Let's dive into each of these right now. The first one was a fear of losing money. This is probably the most common reason for not making those positive EV aggressive plays. You just don't want to lose the money you're playing with. If you only have $100 in your bankroll and you're playing a $25 buy-in game, you are way under-rolled and you're likely playing with scared money. Your decisions are going to be negatively impacted by this, and it often leads to overly nitty play or overly passive play, both pre and post-flop, of course. If you're too nitty, you're not putting yourself in enough money-making situations against weaker players. And if you're too passive, you're just relying on showdown to win the hand, and you're not utilizing a powerful weapon in your arsenal, which of course is fold equity. Nor are you building the pot when you're ahead in the hand. The second fear is a fear of making mistakes. So many of us have this idea that a great poker player does not make mistakes. We think that the greats know what they're doing at all times. They know the strategies and they know when to employ them. But here's what I know to be true. Great players make mistakes every time they play. They just try to learn from them. I make mistakes every time I sit down at a poker table. I make an incorrect bet size, maybe I misread the board, maybe I fail to notice my opponent's stack, and a plethora of other things, let me tell you. Poker's a game of imperfect information. You never know exactly the hand that your opponent has. You don't know how they're going to play their top pair hand, or even their flush draws, or their straight draws, or their gut shot draws. You're also not always going to know when your opponent's bluffing, maybe semi-bluffing, or value betting. Because of this imperfect information, we're constantly making assumptions. And I do believe in that old saying, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So mistakes are built into poker. It's your view of the mistakes that you make and what you decide to do about them that matters. And the third fear is the fear of looking like a fool. So making a bluff on the flop, knowing that you can fold later without showing your hand, that's one thing. But it's another thing when you know that if a villain calls your all-in bluff shove, everyone is going to see what you did it with. What goes through your head before you make that shove?
No! They're all gonna laugh at you!
Yep, you're scared, you don't want them to laugh at you, but you think that if you make the aggressive play and get called, everyone will see that you bluff shoved maybe on like a 3-flush board with a jack-high straight draw. In your head, the other players are saying, man, what a terrible play. He should have known the other guy had a flush. So sometimes, due to this fear of looking like a fool, we forego making the aggressive play that we know is going to work out most of the time. But here's the thing. Why should you give a crap what they're thinking? And my answer is that you shouldn't. You saw a great opportunity to bluff your opponent off the pot, and you knew that he could only call with a flush, and he doesn't have that many flushes in his range. Your fear of what your opponents might think of your aggressive play caused you to not make the play that you knew was profitable. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/smartpokerstudy. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from and plenty of different books from poker authors. They of course have my books, How to Study Poker Volumes 1 and 2, and my newest book, Preflop Online Poker. So right now, Preflop Online Poker on Audible is $19.95. What I recommend is that you sign up for that Audible trial and get Preflop Online Poker as your first free book. And then go ahead and purchase How to Study Poker Volume 1 because it's pretty cheap for Audible members. Study that one first, and then study Preflop Online Poker. Once again, to start your trial, visit audibletrial.com/smartpokerstudy. And speaking of my newest book, German Rincon left a review on Amazon for it. This is what he says. He gave it 5 stars, and he said, a systematic plan to study poker and a path to challenge yourself. The curriculum of poker. Sky's new poker masterpiece is here. After Sky released How to Study Poker Volume 2, I couldn't believe things were able to get any better this soon. With the introduction of poker dominoes in Preflop Online Poker, the author draws a clear path to follow if you want to become a steady winning player. The dominoes unfold poker study, basic and complex preflop concepts from zero to mastery. Right now, I'm dealing with the first domino, preflop ranges. It'll take me around 4 to 5 months to digest all the dominoes in this book and successfully apply Sky's methodology, but I'm already hearing the dominoes falling straight to the last of them. I'm grateful to have this systematic way to study and re-study the game. Feel free to witness success by yourself. And he ends it with, Gambate! Wow, I don't think I could have even asked for a better review than that one. Thank you so much, German. And two more quick shout-outs here. Toru-san purchased my Smart HUD. He got it by going to smartpokerstudy.com, so now he's using this with Poker Tracker 4, obviously, using it to crush his opponents. I hope I'm not facing him at any of my tables, that's for sure. And Jason Vass purchased my webinar called Rejamming Like a Boss. This webinar is geared towards MTT players, and sit and go players can use it, of course, as well, where I teach you how to rejam for 3 bets or even 4 bets in order to exploit your opponents and take away pots from them. You know, if you're at 12 big blinds, somebody opens the pot for 2.5, and you shove it in and take down what is now a 5 big blind pot. 2.5 big blinds, 1.5 from the blinds, 1 blind from the antes, 5 big blinds. You've just now added 5 big blinds to your 12 big blind stack for a 42% increase. Now you have a little bit of wiggle room because you're at 17 big blinds. So good luck studying all that information on that webinar, Jason. And if you have any questions, of course, send them my way. And if you'd like to purchase Rejamming Like a Boss for yourself, just go to today's show notes page for a link. Alrighty, back to class, poker people. So with most poker leaks, you can calculate the cost of the leak. If you're 3-betting with way too many hands or folding versus C-bets way too often, you can figure out how much you're losing because of that. But with this poker leak, you can't really calculate the cost all that well. Or at least, you can't really calculate it with really good accuracy. You can choose to do this if you want. You'll just have to take a lot of time and make a lot of assumptions to see how much money you missed out on. So, for example, you can filter for 3-bet opportunities, go through them all, which of course you're going to have hundreds of 3-bet opportunities in any like 1,000 or 2,000 hand sample. You can go through all of those, determine which ones would have been a really good or a profitable 3-bet bluff, add up how much you missed out on, and that's the total right there. So it just takes a ton of work, and so I don't have a great way to really calculate the costs for this one. But it's pretty obvious if you're not making those profitable bluffs when you know that they're profitable, you missed out on that 10, that 15, that 30 big blind pot, whatever it ended up being. Same thing if you're failing to make that thin value bet on the river for an extra 5 big blinds. Well, you ended up checking behind, you took down the pot, but you missed out on additional 5 big blinds right here. If you would have made that bet, your win rate would be 5 big blinds more than it is. Alright, the other thing I like to do with all of these leaks is to give you quantifiables that you can track. As you try to plug this leak, you should see changes to various numbers, various statistical numbers within your database, right? Because you're choosing to get more aggressive in certain spots, hopefully your win rate will be increasing, but also all those different aggressive stats will be increasing as percentages as well. So here are the pre-flop stats I recommend. And of course, you can also record the win rates associated with each play. So you want to record your raise first in stat. You want to record your 2-bet calling stat as well. And you want to see if this stat drops as 3-bet increases. And like I just said, record your 3-bet stat. You also want to record your 3-bet call stat and your 4-bet stat, because hopefully you're calling less 3-bets because you're 4-betting more in profitable spots. And then if we look at post-flop, there are so many aggressive post-flop stats that you can be focusing on and that you can be recording. Some of these are like C-bet the flop, check raise on the flop, making a flop donk bet, raising a C-bet. There's also the flop float, which in Poker Tracker 4, this is considered, or this is counted when you're betting in position on the flop, when the pre-flop raiser checks to you. Basically, they fail to C-bet, and you bet in position. There's also the turn probe, which you can record, and that is betting out of position on the turn when the pre-flop raiser fails to C-bet on the flop. Of course, we're talking about aggression, so you want to record your double barrel and triple barrel stats. Those are simply your C-bet the turn and C-bet the river stats. You also want to take a look at the bet river stat, your fold to river stat, and your raise river stat, or in Poker Tracker 4, it's called 2-bet river. All of these right here, if you're getting more aggressive on rivers, your bet river should rise, your 2-bet river should rise as well, and your fold to river bet, and actually your call river bet, should both drop. And of course, those all-encompassing aggression stats, AF for aggression factor, and AFQ for aggression frequency. Challenge! Here's my challenge to you for this episode. I'm going to give you a little bit extra challenge with this one here. I'm going to give you one play session challenge and a study session challenge. Here's the play session. Find spots to get aggressive by asking yourself, is betting or raising a positive EV play here? So over your next 3 play sessions, with every post-flop decision where betting or raising is a possibility, ask yourself the question. Try to consider all the variables. For example, your hand, your opponent's range, the board, the bet sizing, stack sizes, HUD stats, and history, all that kind of stuff. If the answer is yes, that it is a positive EV play, then decide on the proper bet sizing and make the play. And of course, you want to tag any of these hands where you know that getting aggressive is positive EV. And your study session focus for this week. You need to review all of the tagged hands. So I want you to do full hand reading exercises with each hand that you tagged. Utilize Flopzilla to put your opponent on a range and narrow it through the streets until you get to the play in question. Judge the pot size, the bet size, the opponent's range, and their board interaction to determine if the play in question is positive EV or not. Take notes on any mistakes you make and vow to not repeat them in your next session. The mistakes might include not reviewing player stats or notes, failing to notice stack or even bet sizes, maybe not considering other potential plays, things like that. Now it's your turn to take action and do something positive for your poker game.
Oh, that's it now. Get out there and be somebody. Go write a book.
Remember, this episode is not complete until you head to the show notes page at www.smartpokerstudy.com/pod194. You can go there for screenshots and links to everything I discussed today and to discover ways in which you can support the podcast. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have not done so already, please subscribe and leave a review within your favorite podcatching app. This is the best way, other than direct word of mouth, that you can help the show grow. And if you can type or say the word Smart Poker Study, you can find me on Alexa, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. If you've got questions, I have answers. Send me an email to sky@smartpokerstudy.com. Alrighty, poker people, in the next episode, number 195, I'll continue helping you plug this leak by giving you more information on it and more play and study tasks to force you to get more aggressive when you know the time is right. Word of mouth is the best advertising, so thank you very much for sharing the show with other poker people. Your sharing and caring is what helps us grow. Until next time, study smart, play much, and make your next session the best one yet.